Not too far into Shin Godzilla, Japanese Prime Minister Okochi Seiji is presented with a dilemma. He has to authorize the use of military force against a rampaging giant lizard in the middle of a crowded coastal city. "You mean I have to make a decision right this moment?" the Prime Minister exclaims as his advisors press him for his verdict. It's a line that's played for laughs, but it's also one of the most poignant in this excellent movie by co-directors Anno Hideaki and Higuchi Shinji. Over the last 2 decades, the world has been shaken by an unending series of wars, big and small, natural disasters, upheavals in the climate and environment, pandemic diseases, and acts of violence and terror. Yet in the face of these massive challenges to the survival of the human species, our leaders seem to be entirely inept, bumbling cowards who are unable to get anything done, and whose primary tool is the misguided use of violence and force. I saw Shin Godzilla during its limited US run, and I walked away from the movie tremendously impressed with its expert use of the Kaiju film medium to satirize and comment on the failures of modern political leaders, both in Japan and abroad. It was the best movie I've seen in 2016. If you're unfamiliar with the series of Japanese giant monster films released by Toho Studios as part of the Godzilla series, it's important to understand how they've consistently been a vehicle for sly or even overt social political commentary. The very first Godzilla movie in 1954 is considered to be a masterpiece of 20th century cinema. In it, Godzilla itself is a personification of Japan's fears and anxieties about the nuclear bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Underwater nuclear testing awakens the giant lizard, who then wreaks destruction across a swath of Tokyo. Like so many other pieces of mid-20th century Japanese pop culture, Godzilla addresses Japanese fears about the unchecked use of nuclear technology. And just like the 1954 original, Shin Godzilla is also a product of the era in which it was made. Several sequences and scenes in this film reference the tsunami that struck the northern coast of Japan in 2011 and the meltdown at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear reactor that followed. Like the Fukushima meltdown, Godzilla leaves a trail of invisible, radioactive poison in his wake, making the land uninhabitable, the ultimate embodiment of the scars left behind by nuclear power gone awry. But Shin Godzilla also takes aim at an older generation that can only lurch helplessly from crisis to crisis, and call an endless procession of cabinet meetings and emergency committees to address the existential threat barreling across the Tokyo Bay. Subtitles crowd the screen, identifying government personnel, military leaders, locations, even meeting rooms. It's too much detail to try to process or remember, as though the viewer is drowning in a sea of bureaucracy. When the Japanese Self-Defense Force fails to halt Godzilla's advance, the United States barges in to assume control of the situation. And in a totally unsubtle critique of US militarism, the Americans' heavy-handed and brutal approach only angers Godzilla, who then incinerates half of Tokyo. It's especially pointed criticism considering the increasingly harsh scrutiny the US military presence in Japan is facing. The protagonists are only able to overcome Godzilla when a younger generation of oddballs and general pains in the bureaucracy band together in the spirit of cooperation and mutual effort. It's not bombers and tanks that win the day. It's the ingenuity of the young and the civil infrastructure of Tokyo itself that brings the struggle to an end non-violently. This trope of a team of civil and military bureaucrats coming together to become unlikely heroes is widely used in Japanese pop culture. It's also a major theme in director Anno Hideaki's most famous work, the anime series Evangelion. Several shots and character flourishes in Shin Godzilla are lifted directly from this 1995 TV series. Evangelion also focused on a civil-military bureaucracy fighting against giant monsters, and the show made heavy use of religious and philosophic themes. We live in a time when modern pop culture seems unwilling or incapable of addressing the big questions facing humanity. It's often said that it's easier to imagine an asteroid hitting the Earth than to imagine an alternative to the modern neoliberal consensus. Shin Godzilla tackles these themes head-on, and suggests that another way is possible. We have to set aside the Western belief in brute force and military supremacy and embrace nonviolence and cooperation. If you get the chance, see this movie. It's unlike anything I've seen in recent years, and it's the most important movie you'll see in 2016.